very happy and proud to be part of APD, Africa Prosperity Dialogues this year. We've just been talking on our panel about financing the infrastructure gap in Africa and what's the alternative and unique ways to Africa that we can bridge that infrastructure gap. And also trying to look at the problems that infrastructure deficit has in a developing continent like Africa. I was talking principally about ways in which I thought that there was harm being done to Africa in attracting the requisite capital, both from within Africa, the continent, and from outside Africa in the financing world and global capitals across the world. And I thought one of the most challenging points that we have, a recent report that came out of Africa No Filter, which is part of the program for organized crime and corruption research project. They released a report last year, 2024, which they concluded principally that Africa loses $4.2 billion annually from unrepresentative and unrepresented bad publicity based on inflated impressions of the ills, so-called, of Africa. And that was one of the defeating points in which country and continent risk made finance not come into Africa in the right fashion. And $4.2 billion wouldn't solve the entire infrastructure gap, but it's a linchpin to the financing that we talked about today that is missing. And my point essentially was that we need and we can do something about that false narrative to correct it and to make sure that our country risk is properly calibrated, our continent risk is properly calibrated. A huge sum of money like that could solve many of the infrastructure problems and projects that we have. The other point I made a little later on was that I thought that, yes, there are bridges, roads, rail, airports, seaports that are very important because they're tangible assets from which wealth can be created. But I also feel that they're intangible assets. And a human capital was an investment target that I thought we should approach consistently and deliberately and intentionally over the immediate future. Because the demographic of Africa supports an investment into that soft infrastructure of the mind. And I spoke about the future of financing can be raised internally through our activation of our carbon markets. Our carbon markets has a potential that hasn't even been properly valued in Africa. It's unique because we know that Africa has many of the pristine areas that can be tradable in a credible and international way, in which we can raise financing locally, as is being done elsewhere in the global south. So those are the points I made today. I'm very proud to be part of Africa Prosperity Dialogues, and see you next year.